back to another episode of Coop's House. As you guys can see, I'm finally back in the shop and I'm working on our Cummins swap square body build. I've been gone for just a few days on vacation, which was absolutely so much needed. We just had so much going on. We've been so busy and so overwhelmed that we just needed that little bit of time to take a break, kind of unwind and hit a little bit of a reset so that we could get back to the shop, hit the ground running, and hopefully get some of this stuff knocked out. I know we've been promising for quite a while that this build was coming back, but we were waiting on a few parts to get here, including the front drive shaft, which we were having shortened. A friend of ours had some other parts that he was taking care of the sandblasting on for us. So we finally got all of that stuff here, and I believe we have everything that we need to be able to put this thing together, get it started up, get it in gear, and hopefully drive this thing under its own power for the very first time since we did the Cummins swap. So that is super, super exciting and absolutely huge for this project, something we've been working toward for a very long time. But I figured I would get out here this afternoon and hopefully get some of this powder coating knocked out, because Hunter's at work today, but he will be back tomorrow. So I figured if I could get most of this stuff knocked out today, then tomorrow we would actually be able to start putting this thing together and working toward being able to drive it for the very first time. So with that being said, it's getting late in the afternoon, so I don't need to waste a whole bunch of time. I need to get to work, get this stuff powdered so we can get it ready to go on the truck. Alrighty guys, so after a very, very long day and way longer than I cared to admit, we finally have the fuel tank in. So we got those brackets modified and got it where it would bolt up like it was supposed to by putting those nuts on there and welding those in place and all of that good stuff. Once we did all of that, we actually went to put the tank in, and I realized that the tank straps were actually different. One is a little bit longer than the other one, so I actually, of course, put them on backwards. So I had to take all of that back apart, switch those back around, and then put them back in, which I did not film because I was so frustrated at that point. I just didn't film it. I wanted to get it done, get it over with. But it is all done now, and everything is hooked up just as it should be. So now that it's late at night, I'm about ready to call it a night. But anyway, we're gonna get back out here tomorrow, and we're gonna start running our fuel lines, our brake lines, and getting ready to put our cooling system in place and all that stuff. We have a whole bunch of parts that we need to put on and install so that we can get this thing ready to drive for the very first time so we can actually start assembling it and getting all of that finished. So anyway, glad to have that out of the way, as frustrating as it was. But anyway, all the fun stuff is coming up. I say fun stuff, I do enjoy it, but we're getting to the point where we can drive this thing, and that is what is exciting. So anyway, with all that being said, I'm going to call it a night, and we'll be back out here tomorrow. Alrighty guys, so we're back in the shop tonight. It's been a couple of days. We haven't had a whole bunch of time throughout that couple of days, so we haven't got a whole bunch of stuff done. But as you guys can see, we actually have been working as we had time, and we actually got our steering gearbox mounted back to the frame as well as the hydro boost system. We were going to go ahead and put our brake master cylinder on there as well, but when we started digging into that, we found out that that thing was just full of rust. It looks absolutely terrible, so it's just shot. So we ended up having to order a brand new one. We got that here, but we got it sitting over here with some paint on it because it comes in bare metal, and we just didn't want any issues with rust in the future because we want that thing to stay looking clean for as long as possible. So anyways, that's where we're at with that. In the meantime, what we were gonna do, we were gonna actually go ahead and hook up all of our power steering lines, but we started talking and we started thinking that maybe the braided steel lines will actually look better rather than the rubber lines, especially since we have everything powder coated under here and all of that stuff. So we just want it to look super clean. So if you guys haven't seen that, that's what it actually looks like right there. That's that braided steel line. And so what we want to do is we're actually going to have somebody build those power steering lines for us out of that same stuff so that everything just looks super cool. So anyways, we're waiting on that. I'm going to go tomorrow and hopefully find out about having all of that done and getting it all completed. But in the meantime, we had some suspension parts, some of the steering components and stuff that we were going to powder coat the other night when we powder coated everything else, and we ended up not having enough powder. But that stuff finally came in, and so that's what we're going to do next. We're going to go ahead and take those couple of parts outside, we're going to get those sandblasted, get some powder on, and then we're fixing to install some steering. progress here on the engine and getting everything put back together. We actually went ahead and built our power steering lines. Our buddy that we were talking about wasn't able to actually build those the way that we had hoped you would be able to. So what we did was we actually just bought the braided steel hose like we wanted, and then a bunch of AN fittings and a bunch of crimp fittings and all of that stuff. So we actually got this stuff put together and looking really good. I'm super happy with that. Ended up running out of fittings, didn't order enough, so I've got one other little line that I've got to throw together here, but that's no big deal. We'll have that done in just a matter of seconds. I also went ahead and off camera actually mocked up everything for our steering linkage, so it actually works, and we'll actually go through all the gears on the Dodge transmission using the Chevy steering column. But I do have to take that out and put some paint on it and all that good stuff, so I'm going to show you guys how that worked, and then we'll put it all back in and all that good stuff. Aside from that, we actually still have to go ahead and attach our transmission lines. We're going to do it in pretty much the same way that we did our power steering lines there. So we're going to get those done as well. And then we actually have U-joints we have to replace on the drive shaft. So we're going to replace those U-joints, get that painted, and then get our transmission lines done so we can get all this other stuff thrown together and hopefully crank this thing up, put it in gear for the first time, and see if it's going to move under its own power. Okay guys, so I told you I was going to show you my shift linkage that I actually built. So this part right here, which is our swivel piece, this actually came out of the Dodge donor truck that the motor and transmission and all came out of. This is actually the original shifter shaft, I guess you would call it, that came out of the Chevy that actually attached to the steering column right there. That's actually what does your shifting there. So anyway, this is actually two different rods that I had. One I think came from the Chevy and one came from the Dodge, but anyway, as you can see right here, I ended up having to cut this thing, shorten it, and actually change the angles of these right here, because the way that the Dodge transmission works, as opposed to the Chevrolet, where the Chevrolet actually rolls back and forth, this one actually like slides back and forth. So this one is actually horizontal, whereas the other one is sort of, I guess, vertical or whatever. But anyway, so I had to figure out how I could make that work. And so what I did was I actually took these things right here, and these are actually just sleeves, like would go in like a lawnmower tire or something like that. And I actually created spacers and figured out what I needed to come off of the frame. And so I put these down there, spaced this off the frame, put a bolt through and bolted it down so it actually is mounted tight, mounted sturdy. So then that way this actually rocks back and forth. And I'm trying to figure out how I can show you guys. There you go, Hunter, thank you. So now this actually attaches to the steering column up there. And so whenever the shifter is actually actuated, it pushes that back so it shifts the transmission. So it actually works really, really good. Super surprised, but I ended up, like I said, cutting this, beveling it down to like a 45 to a point, filling it up with weld, so it's actually really good and sturdy, so we'll never have to worry about that. But anyways, we're gonna get this cleaned up, get some paint on it, so it's ready to actually mount back up once it dries. We're gonna build these hoses, we're fixing to go together, and this thing is about to go in gear for the very first time since the swap, so let's get after it. Alrighty guys, so after a whole bunch of time, we finally got the drive shaft in there, which is absolutely huge because that's going to take us to the next step of this thing, which is actually firing this thing up, dropping it down in gear, and seeing if it's going to move under its own power for the very first time since the swap. So that is really, really exciting and an absolutely huge milestone for this build. So absolutely motivating whenever you get to this point because it's just like you see all the fruits of your labor coming together. So it's really, really cool just to see this happen. So anyway, we're about to hook a battery up with this thing, stick some hoses down in some fuel, and hopefully get this thing to start up. We're gonna find out if it's gonna move. And I just remembered I don't have the brakes hooked up either. So we're gonna have to be really, really careful with this. But anyway, send it! Here we go.
Cold. Almost there. Yeah, it thirsts.
It hurts.
Yeah. Come on, old girl. Oh. Something fell. Oh, your picture fell in the truck. There it goes. Yeah, it's where those two lines over here are.
Yeah. We'll get that squared away here. Next video.
Next video. You're leaking just a little bit.
You got a small leak.
Got a small leak. Small leak.
Okay, so batteries got to stay connected. Can't unhook these.
Well, I think that'll be good.
Guys, pay no mind to what we got going on here. It's for testing purposes.
Because if you go too far forward, it'll unhook and it'll turn off.
Yeah.
So it's considered a safe.
It's a fail-safe.
It's a fail-safe.
It's a fail. That's what it is. It's a fail-safe. I know what I was doing the whole time. Now, if I can get these to reconnect, we'll put it in gear and see what happens. And then we'll put down some floor dry. Yeah. Okay, there's one. This worked good enough to crank it. Maybe it'll work good enough to crank it again. Let's go right there like that.
Enough to get it to move forward.
Yeah, let's do it. It ain't going gear. There's drive. Let's see what that does.
Will it start?
Yeah, I don't have a neutral safety switch.
All right, that's right.
Alrighty guys, so a little bit of a disappointment, but we did make a whole lot of progress in this video. We got all this stuff put back together, all these lines, the drive line is all put back together. We thought we might get to put this thing in gear and actually see it move, but what I think we're gonna have to do, I think we're gonna have to go ahead and run all those transmission cooler lines, and then there's some sort of canister that goes on the passenger side of the motor that actually the transmission lines go into. So I think what may be the problem is it's not able to build up enough pressure in the transmission to actually shift. So I'm hoping that's the issue, because this was a running driving truck that we took this out of, motor and transmission. So anyway, again, kind of a letdown, but it is what it is. We got a whole lot of stuff left to do as far as getting this thing ready to actually take out on the road. So maybe it's for the best that it didn't move tonight. But anyways, I appreciate you guys, as always, tuning into the video. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments down below if you guys know what may be going on with this thing, or if you see something we could have done better, or all that good stuff. I also want to mention, starting next video, we're actually going to be putting out some how-to stuff as far as like some of the stuff that we've actually had to build for this truck, some of the brackets and things like that. So we're going to start putting out a little bit of that content over in its own playlist. So if you see something that we're doing that you kind of wonder how we did it, we're going to actually try to put out some videos talking about that. But anyways, as always, I appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.